There is a house in the hills outside Kyoto. It is not a grand house. It was never meant to be. The roof has a slight lean to the left that was never corrected, not because the builder forgot, but because he decided at some point during the work that the lean was right, that it belonged. The garden has not been trimmed this week. Moss has crept up one side of the stone lantern near the gate. A ceramic bowl on the engawa, the narrow wooden porch that runs along the front of the house, has a crack running from the rim to the base. Someone filled the crack with gold not long time ago. The crack is now the most beautiful thing about the bowl. Inside, a woman sits near a low window. She is not young. Her hands, folded in her lap, carry the texture of a long life. Small scars, the slight thickening of joints, skin that has learned to be comfortable with itself. Outside, rain is beginning. Very soft rain, barely more than mist, the kind that doesn't make a sound so much as a presence. The garden darkens slightly. The moss deepens its green. She is not doing anything in particular. She is simply here. We are going to spend the night in this house. We are going to move slowly through the rooms and the garden and the quiet, and let the philosophy of this place do what it has always done, which is to ask, very gently, whether the things we are so certain are flaws might in fact be something else entirely. There is no hurry. The rain is soft. The night is long. Let your body settle into wherever you are. Let your breathing slow. You don't need to hold anything tightly tonight. The Japanese have a word, or rather two words, that have grown together over centuries until they become a single idea: wabi and sabi. Wabi originally described a kind of poverty, the state of having little, a hut in the mountains, far from the capital, far from the influence and ceremony and the noise of importance. It was not considered a desirable state, not at first. To be wabi was to be without, to be marginal, to be outside the circles of power and refinement. But something happened slowly over centuries. The poets and the monks and tea summer masters who actually lived that way, in those small huts, in that quietness, began to notice something that the wealthy did not have: a quality of attention that abundance crowds out, a capacity to find sufficiency, even beauty, in very small things. Sabi carried a different weight. It described the patina of time, the rust of an old iron kettle, the silver in aging wood, the particular texture of things that have been used for a long time and carry that use in their surfaces. It came from a verb meaning to wither, but the withering over time came to be understood not as loss, but as deepening. A new teacup is smooth and even. A teacup used for 40 years has absorbed something: the heat of countless mornings, the hands of the person who held it, the slow accumulation of a life lived near it. It has become more itself, not less. Wabi Sabi, the fuse idea, is the aesthetic and philosophical recognition that impermanence, imperfection, and incompleteness is not they're not problems to be solved. They are the texture of reality, and reality attended to carefully is beautiful. This is not a comfortable idea for a culture that sells perfection, that trades in smooth surfaces and seamless finishes and the relentless promise that with the right product, the right procedure, the right effort, you can arrive somewhere flawless. Wabi-Sabi says you are already there. You just haven't learned to look properly yet. The woman near the window shifts slightly. The rain continues. She does not reach for anything. There is a practice in Japan called Kintsugi when a ceramic piece, a bowl, a cup, a vase is broken. A Kintsugi artist does not discard it. They do not try to hide the break. They repair it with lacquer mixed with gold or silver or platinum. The cracks become luminous seams. The places where the object broke become the most visible, most deliberate, most considered parts of its surface. The bowl on the Engawa outside this house was repaired that way. A bowl that someone loved enough to break, and loved enough to mend, and loved enough to keep on the porch where the rain can find it and the light can move across the gold line in the mornings. Kintsugi is sometimes described as a metaphor for human resilience, the idea that our breaks and repairs makes us more beautiful, more interesting, more real than we were before. That is true, but there is something more precise in it than a metaphor. A bowl repaired with kintsugi does not pretend the break did not happen. It does not sand it down, fill it with white filler, repaint over it in the original glaze so that you would never know. It says clearly and permanently, this broke, and this is how it was put back together. And the putting back together is part of what it is now. That is a very different relationship with damage than the one most of us were taught. We were taught, most of us, that damage is something to recover from, to move past, to leave behind, to arrive eventually at a version of ourselves that is unmarked, unburdened, as smooth and even as we were before whatever happened. Wabi Sabi disagrees, not cruelly, not with the false cheer of someone telling you that everything happens for a reason, but quietly, practically, looking at the actual evidence of actual lives. The people who have lived the most fully are not the ones who went unbroken. They are the ones who broke and repaired and carry the gold lines openly. Think for a moment of the people who you have known in your life who had a quality of deep settledness, a groundedness that you could feel when you were near them. The ones who seem to have arrived somewhere real, somewhere earned. They were not, in my experience, the ones who had been spared. The rain outside is a little heavier now. It taps against the wooden rail of the Engawa. The cracked bowl holds a small pool of water. The gold seam catches what little light there is. There's nothing wrong here. There's nothing that needs fixing. In the garden, there is a maple tree. In autumn, and this is autumn, just barely, the night's newly cool. Its leaves are beginning to turn, not fully yet. Here and there, at the edges, the green is giving way to something beyond, between yellow and red that has no precise name. In a few weeks, the tree will be entirely transformed. In a few weeks after that, the leaves will be gone. The Japanese have a concept called mono no aware. It is often translated as the pathos of things, or the gentle sadness of transience, the awareness of impermanence, and the bittersweet feeling that awareness produces. It is most famously associated with cherry blossoms. The sakura are not simply beautiful in Japan, they are beautiful because they fall. The falling is not the tragedy that interrupts the beauty. The falling is part of the beauty, inseparable from it. The knowledge that this particular pink, this particular abundance will last perhaps 2 weeks before the petals scatter. That knowledge is woven into the experience of standing beneath the trees. Wabi-Sabi holds this same awareness, but extends it outward from spring flowers to everything: the tea bowl, the garden wall, the face of the woman at the window, the house itself, slowly settling into the hill it was built on, all of it in motion, all of it passing. This could be experienced as loss. It often is, especially when we are young or when something specific is ending that we are not ready to release. The awareness of impermanence can ache, but there's another way it can sit in the body when you have lived with it long enough. A kind of softening, a release of the need to hold things in place, an ability to be present with what is here precisely because you're not spending your energy resisting the fact that it will change. The woman at the window knows the maple will be bare in a month. She knows it without sadness, or rather, with a sadness so absorbed, so fully integrated into her way of seeing that it has become indistinguishable from appreciation. She is not avoiding the knowledge of the trees turning. She is watching it and feeling it and letting it be exactly what it is. That is the practice, not detachment. The Stoics come close to detachment sometimes, though even they pull back from it. Wabi Sabi is not detachment, it is full presence with the thing that is changing, accompanied by the full knowledge that it is changing. What is passing in your life right now? Not what has been lost. What is the process of changing? A season, a phase, a version of yourself you are slowly leaving behind. You do not need to hold it tighter. You do not need to accelerate past it. You can simply be here with it, the way you might stand beneath a maple in early autumn and feel, without needing to name it, what it means for color to be this alive precisely because it is temporary. The smallest room in this house is perhaps the most important. It is barely large enough for 3 people. The ceiling is low, deliberately low, so that anyone who enters must bow their head, regardless of rank or status. The entrance, if you come from the garden, is a small square opening in the wall called a nirichuguchi. You have to crawl through it. An emperor crawls through the same opening as a farmer. The tea room does not recognize hierarchy. The walls are a particular shade of pale gray, the color of aged paper, or early morning before the sky has committed to blue. There are no decorations except for a single hanging scroll in the alcove. The scroll has 3 brushstroke characters on it: Ichigo Ichii, one time, one meeting. The idea that this encounter, this specific gathering of these specific people in this specific moment, will never happen again. It is unrepeatable. It deserves full attention. A small iron kettle sits on a charcoal fire. The sound it makes, The slight, steady murmur of water approaching the boil is considered part of the tea experience. The tea masters have a name for it, Matsukatse, the wind in the pines. The tea ceremony, Chado, is sometimes described as a performance. It is not, or rather, it is a performance in the same way that breathing carefully is a performance. Everything that happens, the folding of the cloth, the scooping of the matcha, the turning of the bowl, is done with a quality of attention that is it itself the point, not for an audience, not to be impressive, simply because this moment, this gesture, this particular morning or evening will not come again. Wabi-sabi is woven through the entire ceremony. The tea bowls used in the most traditional practice are not the smooth, symmetrical objects you might expect. They are irregular. They are sometimes lopsided. They are often rough to the touch. They look, to the trained on Western aesthetics, almost unfinished. They are not unfinished. They are made the way they are made because the maker understood that a perfectly regular bowl is a performance of control, and control in the tea room is not the point. Presence is the point. There is a word in Japanese craft philosophy, ma, negative space, the pause between notes, the empty corner of a room, the silence between sentences. Ma is not absence, it is a quality in itself, a kind of breathing space that gives everything around it room to be what it is. We are not very good at Ma. We fill, we add, we improve, we optimize. We arrive at a room and begin to rearrange it. We arrive at a silence and begin to fill it. The tea room asks us to sit in the Ma, to feel the empty corner as a presence rather than an omission, to hear the silence between the words as part of what the words mean. Right now, around you, there is Ma, the space between sounds, the darkness beyond the light, the gap between this breath and the next. You don't need to feel it, it is already complete. The rain has stopped. It stopped a few minutes ago, so quietly that the woman at the window almost missed the moment of stopping. One moment there was rain, and then there was the sound of rain leaving, the last drops falling from the eaves, from the maple leaves, from the lips of the cracked bowl on the porch. And then there was a different kind of quiet, that quiet that rain leaves behind, which is not the same as the quiet that precedes it. She gets up slowly and slides open the shoji screen and steps out onto the engawa. The garden is extraordinary. Everything is wet and dark and deeply itself. The moss on the stone lantern has absorbed the rain and turned a color that has no name in any language she knows. A green so saturated it seems to generate its own light. The gravel path between the stepping stones has darkened to the color of iron. The maple leaves carry small beads of water at their tips, each one a perfect spear, each one holding a distorted image of the garden within it. She stands and looks at it for a long time. This is Wabi Sabi, perhaps most purely, not a concept being applied to a situation, but a situation so completely itself that no concept is needed. The garden after rain, the moss, the imperfect lantern, the cracked bowl, all of it wet and impermanent and quietly, undeniably beautiful. There is a temptation when you encounter philosophy that describes beauty in imperfection to begin hunting for imperfections to appreciate. to walk through your life like an inspector, deliberately noting the cracks, deliberately cataloging the worn edges, telling yourself, this is beautiful, this is beautiful, this is beautiful, performing the philosophy rather than living it. That is not what Wabi-Sabi asks. What it asks is simpler and harder. It asks for a quality of attention so complete that the thing in front of you, whatever it is, however ordinary, however marked by time and use, becomes visible, not beautiful in a performed way, just seen. The woman on the Engawa is not thinking about wabi-sabi. She is looking at the garden. She is feeling the cold, damp air on her face. She is hearing the last water falling from the maple. She is here entirely without effort or intention. That is the whole of it. There is something this philosophy asks of us that is perhaps harder than anything else it asks, to turn it toward ourselves. We have looked at the cracked bowl and found it beautiful. We have stood beneath the turning maple and felt something soften. We have sat in the tea room and heard the kettle and let the ma breathe. Now, Wabi Sabi asks, and what about you? The lines that time has made in your face, the things you did not do, the paths you did not take, the version of yourself you imagined at 20 and did not become, the ways your body has changed, the beliefs you held that broke, the relationships that ended, the dreams that were quietly, slowly replaced by other things. Wabi Sabi looks at all of it, not to comfort you with the idea that it is fine. Everything happens for a reason. You are perfect just as you are, but to say something more precise and more demanding than that. This is what a life looks like, not a failed life, not a compromised life, a life with the texture of actual living on it. The gold lines are yours. You know where they are. You know which breaks required the most careful repair. You know which cracks you are still carrying, still working on filling, still not sure will hold. Wabi Sabi does not ask you to love them yet. It asks you to see them clearly first, without the overlay of judgment, without the comparison to some imagined version of yourself that never broke, never changed, never became exactly this particular complicated shape. The woman on the Engawa has gold lines of her own. You cannot see them from here. She is not displaying them, but they are there in the way she stands, in the particular quality of her stillness, in the fact that she can look at a wet garden in the dark and feel without ambivalence that she is glad to be here. That gladness was earned. It required breaking. You are in the middle of your own kintsugi. Some of the gold lines are dry. Some of the repair work is still settling. It is this that is not a problem. That is exactly where you are supposed to be. The woman goes back inside. She slides the shoji screen close. The garden disappears behind the pale paper panel, reduced to a soft impression of darkness and the outline of the maple. She stands for a moment looking at it, the tree as shadow, as suggestion, as almost shape behind the screen. She goes to the low table and pours herself a small amount of cold tea from the pot that has been sitting there since this afternoon. The tea is not what it was, cooler now, slightly bitter. The top of the pot ringed with the faint mineral trace of evaporation. She drinks it anyway. It is not a bad cup of tea. It is an honest cup of tea. She sits for a few minutes more, in the particular quality of silence that belongs to late evenings in old houses. A silence made of creaking wood and the memory of the rain and the slow ticking of a world that has decided for now to rest. Then she unfolds the futon and lies down. The maple stands in the garden. The moss breathes in the dark. The cracked bowl on the porch holds the last of the rain. Nothing is perfect here. Nothing needs to be. Wabi-Sabi is not a solution. It does not resolve the things that are hard. It does not make loss easy or endings clean or the passage of time anything other than what it is. What it offers is simpler, a way of seeing that does not require anything to be other than it is before you can rest, a quality of attention that finds the world, this actual imperfect world, sufficient, more than sufficient, beautiful in the way that only real things are beautiful. The cracked bowl, the leaning roof, the tea that has gone cold, the life that has taken its specific unrepeatable shape. You are here. Everything that has happened has happened. Everything that has made you exactly this is part of what you are. The gold lines catch what little light there is. Rest now. Let the imperfection of this day, of this year, of this whole accumulation of days be exactly what it is. You don't need to fix anything tonight. You don't need to fix anything. Sleep.